I would never know. So I'm like, but even this one never had a show.
Did you come out of your shell?
No.
The shell was right wide open for you. Yes, baby.
Yeah,
I know. My goodness, he has so many friends.
Yeah.
So, I'm maybe not gonna watch some again. What? Trolls, Batman. And Abby says he really wants to watch this, okay.
No, that's right. Please.
Ready! Ready!
So you mean you're gonna take her?
Yes.
So.
No, I mean, if you want to come
Yeah,
to
that's gonna be here.
Hello.
All the ladies.
Okay.
Bye, Kevin.
Bye, see you now.
Bye. We're here again tomorrow. Everything's here, just, outside with lunch. Oh, you know, the practice, ready? Oh, and then the performance, keep watching. That's a call man. Put your guys keep watching, okay?
Wait, you have to go to the other side.
Look, Abby's running out.
Okay. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Yeah, come tomorrow. What time were you on it?
I came in at 10. I was covering for Esther. She had a regional meeting. You're grounded. You're grounded. Grounded.
Anybody on yet?
No,
Ooh, it's cold.
it's really cold in here.
Yeah. Include water bottle?
Hi. Hi, John. You're on mute.
Stay dry.
I know.
I said hi. It put me on mute automatically, which is always,
Did it?
yeah.
That's interesting. So, John, I'm gonna make you co-host.
Amazing. It turned winter at about 11 o'clock. Started off balmy at at 10 o'clock, it was like 75, and then it just went.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to make this bigger. There we go.
how to make this transcript smaller. Well, how does a transcript look in your world? Does it bother on the Zoom?
I don't even, does it
Oops,
show up?
what did-
So
did you just-
it transcribes
do
it
that?
live?
Yeah, did you just do
No,
that?
I
I've
didn't do
lost my
anything.
Zoom.
I didn't do anything.
Oh, okay, so. All right, that's all good. Yeah.
I think the rain is going to depress our turnout.
Well, certainly here in the room, in the Zoom room at South Seas. Hi, Donna.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Hey,
I'm loving the rain,
rain's good.
right?
So, John,
And the Paul Williams house has half a roof. Yay.
only
good.
half? Only
Uh,
half?
They put paper on half to make it waterproof. Then they put a new tarp over the rest of it. So, but it's only been a quarter inch, so I'm not worried about a quarter inch.
I did drive by and it did, had they removed the tarp? Because it looked like it was in really wretched condition.
They did the work so far has been all in the back, so you can't even see it yet from the street. So next week,
No, but I saw them standing on the back and I saw a really wretched exposed roof and
Yep.
shredded.
four
tarp.
layers and an aged tarp that has,
Yeah,
they don't last. They only last,
I know.
so,
We had them on, the bunkhouse and the farmhouse. It was like
yeah.
every 8 months or so needed a new one. Okay, so I guess we should just wait till 7:05.
Sure.
Call it order and just see if we have attendees besides Donna, me, and you. And John, so because unless you're gonna share documents, I was gonna start opening documents.
I'm opening them right now.
Oh, I say in what order? But if you're gonna handle that, it's easier for me. It's
Yeah,
difficult.
That's why I thought it was a good idea for me to be in a computer
Perfect.
driving the ship here.
Are you gonna drive the?
Let me just open all of them.
Sure. Now, what I've learned is on this computer, every time I open a document, it posts, everyone can see what I'm doing. So it's better to have a co-host one way or another doing that. And it is officially 7:05.
Okay. Well, let me get the agenda back up. It keeps.
So I can do the agenda if you want. I have that one open.
Okay. No, why don't
Do
I
that.
share that because I have it open as well. Sorry, I'm just getting Zoom organized here.
Unless Donna's upset, we can start at 7:06 or
Hey,
7:01.
Donna, want
You
to learn
can
about
start when you get ready. It doesn't
Okay.
matter.
Donna, do you want to learn all about housing laws in California 2024? Well, we got something for you.
Okay. Sounds good. Anybody know about 4314 West Adams?
No.
The second abode.
Oh, well, we might. So here we go. John's popping this up.
Do you want me to want me to talk first?
Yes, please. And
Good evening, everybody. Everybody, and then anyone who might watch this after the fact. Welcome to the UNNC Planning and Zoning committee for our meeting. Today is Wednesday, November 15th, 2023. We are split on Zoom and live. Live is Laura at the South Seas. Live is Laura. Laura is live at the South Seas house, and I'm live in my COVID shed here. So welcome. The meeting is on the screen, and so I'll just scroll up. We're in the welcome. Standing rules for that. We aren't voting on anything tonight, so it's somewhat moot, but I will say it anyway. But we go around the table, introduce ourselves, declare our intent declare our status as stakeholders, and with that, our intent to vote or not as a stakeholder, as defined by the UNNC rules. And that's it. So I'm John Arnold. I live in Jefferson Park. I'm co-chair with Laura Myers for this committee. I was for many years a UNNC board member. I no longer am. I'm just a plain old resident in Jefferson Park. Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Myers, and I am on the board of UNNC, and I live in Angeles Vista, and I am the co-chair of this committee, along with being, at the moment, UNNC's vice president.
Great. Thank you, Laura. Donna.
Hi, I'm Donna Jones from West Adams Avenues. I am a stakeholder and intend to participate.
And just for anyone who's watching this after the fact, anyone can participate in our discussions. We are open to everybody who wants to have a voice and talk about the information and the themes of what we're seeing. So with that, I'm going to close item number 1 and go on to general public comments. Anyone have a general public comment? Laura, Donna? I don't have any. Oh, I do have one.
I have to, well, yeah, Donna was bringing something up. Also, by the way, the internet, I want to tell you something. The internet connection here is showing as unstable. So John, you'd be able to continue the meeting if I fall off and come back. Well, it would be weird, but.
So I got a notification today from someone at my office that across the street from Highly Likely, a food court of sorts with a very fancy chef is going in. So right here, not right here, but in the Crenshaw district on Jefferson Boulevard, we're getting something which people may or may not like, but it's something is going in the building. It's been under construction for, I'm going to say, years now, but there's actually a notification of what's going in there. Laura, do you have knowledge about it?
I do, because I got an email from David, who got an email from who knows who. Yeah, no, it's a fancy, famous restaurant in Washington, D.C., or I should say a famous chef from Washington, D.C., who is opening 2 restaurants and a third or multiple space, so sort of the food court, for other local, well, not existing eateries, but local chefs, I guess, to have their own spaces. So it'll be 5, I think, restaurants in all, maybe 6.
And this is an article that's in Eater Today that I think came out.
Yeah, that's the one I read. Maydan Market.
It has. I'm going to post the link in the chat.
Okay.
Anyway, so I thought that's, what, like, love it or not, it's something that's happening in the neighborhood. That's something that we're not used to getting. So
so it's on Jefferson, about, I want to say 5 or 6 blocks west of Crenshaw.
Yes, it's right across the street from Highly Likely.
Correct.
Directly.
Right. So.
Okay. Did you find what you were looking for?
4314, the second abode building. I guess it's the one on the south side where the old car wash.
The motel.
And it's supposedly going to, it was brought to my attention from Hakeem that they're doing they're wanting to do something to preserve it as a low income. What do you call that?
Well, you mean the abode? It
Yes.
is.
It is low income.
It
Well,
is low.
it's they're either changing hands or doing something. And it this council office is designating it as forever low income. What do you call that? When they,
So are you talking about,
that
so
one.
here's
Yeah,
the
that will-
abode building. That's the
It
Uh-huh.
abode.
is forever low income.
That's
isn't it?
forever, that's a forever affordable. It's covenanted. Are you talking about this building or one of these other ones?
No, that one, 4314, I think that's it, if I'm correct.
Well, it's already occupied by seniors as an affordable.
It's covenanted.
Yeah, I know all that, but if he brought, I don't remember the actual information that he was passing on, but they are doing something
Oh.
to designate it in some way. So
Was it a generally positive thing in your mind,
yeah,
Don?
yeah,
Okay.
not negative.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Well,
Well,
Not-
so
nothing.
we'll follow up. And
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the city's gonna buy it.
No, I have,
I know you've got some engagement with it, do you not, John?
I do. I haven't heard anything, so I have nothing to report. So that would if I haven't heard anything, I just don't know what that would be, Donna. I mean, I
Yeah,
believe
yeah,
some-
I don't either.
Yeah,
I didn't get the full,
yeah,
yeah, it's 4314.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he talked to me a little bit about it, but I got nothing in writing.
Okay.
And just something that has to do with them designating it something,
Okay.
but we can always find out.
Yeah. Well, certainly worth
I
finding
just
out.
thought maybe you had heard, so
No.
that,
No.
because I don't follow it and didn't understand that much of it. It is not negative, and it wouldn't be something that we would have a problem with.
And it wouldn't.
Right up
wouldn't
the
be
street
anything.
on Montclair, they are planning to, Sim owns that market, the old market there,
Uh-huh.
and they're gonna renovate it
Oh, well, good.
and
You mean
bring
next?
it,
You're saying next door to the south.
it's on Montclair going,
Yeah.
not
South,
exactly next door, but very close.
right? So, so the real question is, I'm sure CIM is asking this real question: are they putting a light in at Montclair like everyone's been asking?
Yeah,
Just saying.
we actually have had discussions with that in mind, and I think it might be moving forward. I'm not totally sure about that.
Well, I do know at the moment we don't. The good news is that we don't have to report any pedestrian fatalities there, unlike
No,
fortunately Venice Boulevard had yet another one.
yes,
But I don't want to get to the place where we will have a pedestrian fatality.
none of us do. And we
Yeah.
are, I pushed it, mentioned what we had discussed about the votes that had occurred already. And we're basically waiting a little bit to
Yeah.
find out more about that. But Well, Hakeem came to our meeting. We
Right. I was going
discussed,
to say, anything else of interest from your meeting?
basically a lot of the same things that we knew something. He updated us a little bit on Murphy, but that's still in decision process or something. It's not complete. We talked about a little bit about updated information on ADUs. We talked, there is whether single family communities, HPOZs would be waived out of the density
So we have
thing that's coming.
we have updates on that. That's our topic for the evening, so we can
Okay, cool.
opine on that.
We brought up, that was one of the other things he discussed.
Great.
So
Any other public comment? Do you have anything else, Donna or Laura?
No, I just wondered if you guys knew about 4314.
No, but we'll follow up on that. The only thing I guess I'll follow up on is, in theory, though I haven't seen the notice, the 3020 Crenshaw appeal hearing, which was postponed in October, should be on the first Tuesday in December, which would be December 5th, at the Area Planning Commission at 4:30 in the afternoon. But they haven't posted the hearing notice yet.
Right.
So
I'm
pretty sure that's the day.
I have a little gossipy public comment.
Sure.
I had the pleasure of sitting at the Alhambra City Council meeting on Monday evening. It started at 6. I left City Hall in Alhambra at 1:30 in the
Oh my
morning.
God.
They are going through, so they are going through a zone change based on their inability to provide enough zoned parcels to meet their housing element requirements. So the state is putting the screws down on the city of Alhambra to make good on their housing element, to provide more zoned land for multifamily housing, with, of course, the threat, if they don't do it, their housing element will be deemed not in compliance, and then builder's remedy will kick in. And builder's remedy, as we know, is if you don't have a housing element, developers can come in and propose anything they want. And
Tomorrow that somebody could do that, since they don't have a housing element.
so it was very interesting. We had people saying, let them come in, just do the builder's remedy, and we'll take our lumps. And the city council's like, well, it's more than that. It's a litigation. It's the city suing. It's the state suing the city of Alhambra. And apparently that's not going well in Redondo Beach. Redondo Beach decided to stand up to the state, and they're losing, which is not surprising. So
Well, can I be equally gossipy?
Oh wait, I'm not finished with my story.
Oh, you're not
I just
done.
want to do 2 shout outs. I'm proud that the city of LA did not go there. The city of LA has an approved housing element. We are amending our zoning, and we have been working on it for years and years, including with TOC. And one of the city council members in Alhambra said in public, I just want you to know that if the bigger cities had done their part earlier, that we wouldn't be going through this. And now all the little cities are paying. And boy, did I feel like raising my hand and saying, I object. City of LA has been doing so much, and it's the little cities that have been jamming the gears. And so, and their housing obligation for affordable housing is, guess how many housing units they have to put up, and they're all melting down about it.
I don't.
8,000 compared to our, what do we need? 800 and something thousand.
Maybe it's not
Alhambra is the size of West Adams Avenue. So
Alhambra has 100,000 people. But anyway, they need to put 8,000 units, and they're having all these arguments about the boulevards and everyone. I mean, it was just real. It was like, wow, you guys are like.
Okay, now can I be gossipy?
Okay, that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
No, I'm still on the same topic.
We got shade. We got serious shade from Alhambra.
I know, but I'm going to add some more. So, John, both you and I at different times have served on the City of LA's Housing Element Task Force, right? But the year I served on it, which seems like such a distant past, I think it was 2008, we also reviewed the Alhambra proposed housing element, and what they were proposing for their affordable housing was nothing on Huntington or any of the corridors. They were proposing that the guest rooms for the maids, the live-in maids, should be sufficient to, I mean, this was in writing, should be sufficient to meet the state goals for affordable housing in Alhambra. So
that said, lovely people. We have a community center project there, And everyone's been lovely and the city manager's lovely. But when they said that, I was like, don't talk about my city that way. We've been doing a lot.
Yeah,
Right.
we've been doing a lot right in this neighborhood. So
Agreed.
if we just go by the mid-city area, we've been doing more than our fair share.
Right. So we're going to get into this topic a little bit more when we get to the.
Okay, any more public comment, gossipy or not?
None.
I'm just thinking for a minute, but I can't think of anything.
Okay, let's go back to the agenda.
All right. I think your New England accent just came in there.
Oh, I said that very purposefully. That's how my dad would say agenda.
That sounds like Tyler Perry.
And my dad would say Donner, and he would say Laura. He would say Laura and Donner.
I don't know why they put ERs on things from.
And then they remove them where they need to be. So
Yeah.
it's a puzzle.
So
Yeah.
basically,
We won't talk about
Bill-
Washington from other parts of the world. Okay.
all right, you're scrolling too far on that agenda, though. We're just going to need to look at item number next. What is it?
Okay, so it's the end of the year, and going on to item number 3, there is a slate of new housing laws. Housing laws generally take effect on January 1, and as it's been for the last 5, 6, 7 years, every January 1 there's an update for things that have been passed in Sacramento, and for the past few years it's been mostly revolving around housing, and a lot of it's coming from Scott Wiener, who has been the first, kind of putting minor things into density bonus, and now they're just really turning up the volume on getting more affordable housing, more housing in general in the state. So there are a number of laws that are taking effect on January 1. Some of them have already taken effect, and then we have one in our own city, which is emergency. What's ED? Is it emergency declaration? Emergency?
Well, the ED1.
I know, is that emergency
So
declaration?
emergency declaration 1, and I think the number 1 was because it's the first one Mayor Bass signed.
So, and that one's turning into likely going to turn into an ordinance in the coming weeks. So, Laura and I assembled some reading material, which will be available on the agenda forever, in the packet forever. So, anyone who wants to read it in the future, it is still available on the UNNC website. If you go to this agenda, click on the packet of information at the top of the agenda. Hold on. Right here, everybody, and looking at this in YouTube, click on this and you'll be able to access all the information that we have assembled for California housing laws that are coming up that will affect us. So that said, I don't know how you want to do this, Laura, just go through.
Yeah, I think, I highlighted a couple in the agenda, which were the ones that have been sort of talked about as well at some of the recent conferences, right?
Yeah, so so it's conference season. I've been to 2 of them in the past 2 weeks. One is SCAMP, Southern California Association of Nonprofit Housing, and AIA, American Institute of Architects, Design for Dignity, which is a conference geared towards architects talking about design and affordable housing. It's also a lot of informational panels about what's going on, and in this case, housing legislation. And a person we're all familiar with, Dana Sales, was a speaker in one of the panels for Design for Dignity, going over the changes that are becoming, or basically outlining how ED1 will be likely turning into an ordinance in the coming weeks. So, but a lot of it's.
Wait, I'm going to jump in. I also went to the SCAMP conference because John invited me. And
I meant to give you a shout out. I forgot.
Okay, go ahead and give me a shout out.
Laura was on a panel discussion with a developer, a design advocate, a zine from the mayor's office, and then Laura as a neighborhood representative, being a community advocate. And they talked about housing and density and how to make it work. And Laura did an excellent job speaking to her experience in UNNC, and just basically we didn't want a panel that was just housing, 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 yes, 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 yes. And it was basically a panel saying, how do we get to yes, where it's at least some kind of a win-win for everybody, and what communities want to hear, and how communities want to be heard when having a voice, and how denser, taller, bigger housing is developed in our communities. So it was a lively conversation, and the liveliness mostly came from Laura, because she was somewhat by design to be, the tempering agent. So she did a great job. So that was really, really good. And that was to a very broad audience of developers, architects, policymakers.
How
Yeah.
did they like hearing from you, Laura?
Well, John is saying very nice things, and he's saying it was very lively, etc. But after the fact, I think even John has to admit that some people said I was a NIMBY, which is odd. And no, nobody said that. I heard that.
No, a developer came up to me afterwards and said, I've never been to such an anti-density. And I was like, oh my God, what did you hear? Because all I heard was reasonableness in conversation, provocative conversation, and all she heard was NIMBY. But then I found out after the fact that that developer that came up and talked to me is over the top housing at all costs. She's just like,
Right.
no one has a voice. If you're not pro housing, you're nothing. So that to me is extreme and shuts down conversations. And because we need to have a conversation, and all that brings is shutting down. So otherwise, I heard from the person who put the whole conference together. I spoke to her at the end of the day, and she said that people came up to her and said, our panel was very good.
Oh, good. That's really good. So I thought at this same conference, I thought the lunchtime keynote speaker was really interesting. Mm-hmm. And what he was talking about, he's created an organization, not just leads it, but basically creating housing for homeless students, college students. And an interesting statistic for junior college, and this is in LA County. So for community college and the Cal State, 1 in 5 students is homeless. That is a huge number.
Tens of thousands. That was a number.
Right, 1 in 5. And not homeless people sleeping on a street corner, presumably, but maybe bouncing from couch to couch, maybe occasionally in their own cars, but
using university facilities to shower, and
right,
you wouldn't notice, basically.
Right, and so he's got I mean, it was just a really interesting presentation. It wasn't even really a keynote speech. I mean, he went to video and did a presentation. So I'm thinking it would be a great person to bring out one day or another to probably Tori's committee for him to speak, to UNNC. Maybe to governing board when we've got all this technology better adjusted, but we're taking way too much time at governing board just working our way through hybrid meetings right now. Anyway, I thought it was a really interesting conference. I had one of the reasons our panel got lively is because I digressed from the pre-planned topics, because in hearing other people speaking, I had a little light bulb moment for all of us. And that is, lately everyone's talking about how many, the high proportion of renters in the city of LA, right? Which we do have. I mean, depending on who you ask, it's 65% or it's 75% of all Angelenos are renters. So I don't know where that number comes from. I mean, I don't know if that includes mom and dad and 7 children, in some cases versus singles. But the light bulb moment I had was that all of the solutions we've been talking about seem to create a permanent class of renters. And very few people are talking about how to help to have the goal of renters becoming owners. And the history of Los Angeles was quite different. I mean, 100 years ago, all people talked about was how to help more working people get homes. And in 1910, so longer ago, LA had the highest proportion of homeowners who were African American in the whole country. So somehow we've lost that conversation. Then my words got twisted into, that's how I got twisted into becoming a NIMBY somehow, that, that ownership, that respecting or favoring ownership may also be a NIMBY thing. And I'm not sure how the one became the other. But what I didn't say is, my college roommate and her husband were one of the first buyers in a CRA project in Monterey Hills, of that massive townhomes. And they were able to buy a home 2 years after graduation and into their marriage. And that created not generational wealth, but enough ability for them to go on and then have a single family house somewhere else. And, nobody's building that kind of housing. And that was a community redevelopment agency project. And I think it has, John, do you know which one I'm talking about? It's off Monterey Road.
Yep.
Yeah, it has hundreds of units.
Yeah,
now, I don't know how it's holding up all these years later.
So the issue there is developers love to make money and they love to buy and sell things. But the issue there with building condos, we're talking about condos, is California law makes it very, very easy for condo owners to sue architects, developers, anybody within 10 years for anything. And so it's a very litigious environment. My insurance for my company, we aren't allowed to have more than 5% of our income every year be in condos. And then developers they will get sued. It's like they come to the table and say, it's a condo project, we will get sued. And they do as much armor as they can, but it's a pain. So
but even long before that, the Community Redevelopment Agency had to stop building affordable for sale housing because the funding, all the funding, federal level, went away.
Yep.
Yeah. It went away there. Years ago it went away because there was what was supposed to be at the corner of Hoover and Adams, which is now the student apartments, near the Ward Villas, which is senior housing, but that was originally planned to be sale housing and at an affordable level. And CRA could never put together the money package.
So with that, let's segue into
What
what ED1 is becoming, because it does try to address that by giving a density bonus bump to for sale housing. So ED1 is the mayor's effort, because what happens is a lot of all projects, market rate affordable housing, get caught up in just either red tape in planning, red tape in plan check, and just going through everything we review at Planning and Zoning Committee, all the ways that you have to entitle and ask permission for setbacks or parking or whatever it was. It just takes a long time if you have any deviation from the code, and most affordable housing does, or all of it does. It just takes forever. And so, projects take a year to get entitled, and then another year to go through plan check, and then a year and a half to 2 years to get built. So the average lifespan to get from concept to built is, roughly 4 or 5 years. So ED1 looked to make a lot of things by right, which means that for affordable housing, which means being able to deviate from the code under the density bonus, but do it without a difficult process, which means administrative approval, which means not the public hearings that we're used to, maybe not coming to UNNC or notifying us. And I would argue we had this in our panel discussion, responsible developers will always come to the neighborhood council, whether they're by right or not, to get ideas, to see if their idea, just to it be interactive. But this basically says you don't have to do that. And what it has a few deviations from ED1. This is a draft of the ordinance. You can see it's very fresh. Like it's so fresh it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. It's tomorrow at 8:30 in the morning.
And it just outlines what projects can apply for this stream. It's called streamlining. Basically to cut out some of the administrative and process red tape, and what projects are eligible to take advantage of it. And since they've had a year to see what worked and what didn't, they have made tweaks. For example, removing single family, any single family lot or more restrictive. So any R1 or more restrictive. And then there's a lot of in here in this item number 5, a lot of talk about historic, and you see exempt a project that cannot get into this is any project that required the demolition of anything as a historical resource, anything identified in the South LA community implementation, the South LA CPIO, which is us. So I was curious about a house and an overlay, if that applied. Laura?
Well, the problem, I mean, I saw that language, so I was so glad to see that they put that in, but they put it in incorrectly.
Yeah.
So, and by that I mean, well, if you look at 5, the second one, any eligible historic resource identified within the South LA Community Plan CPIO. But if you remember the language in the South LA, Community Plan, it says that in effect, it says the dots on the map are not necessarily the identified resources. It's in Survey LA or other historic resource survey. So they weren't identified in the CPIO because the CPIO has that other language. So I don't know how this is going to work.
So it's just a draft, so there might be something that's
right. And I am certainly not going to the Planning Commission tomorrow. So this is going to be something we need to comment on after the fact to City Council.
So I would say this one is about streamlining affordable housing in the rules that exist. And so I think it will X out some public input, but it's also.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I was just commenting on this is the language is incorrect. It will be impossible to enforce it with that language is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't reflect the actual CPIO. But beyond that, it has some really good stuff. I mean, that's a tweak. It limits incentives to 1. It limits incentives waivers to 1. It limits incentives, I think, to 2. In other words, it doesn't allow for endless incentives and waivers as a streamlined ministerial project.
So if you want endless, you have to go through a non-administrative approval.
Correct. It becomes discretionary again, meaning CEQA then applies. And it's appealable. And then it will be turned down, but that's a different thing. So if you keep going, because I did read it, it also has some stuff about, you can go down some farther because it doesn't allow 0-foot setbacks. It doesn't allow a complete reduction of open space. It does not allow trees to be disappeared. So I'm trying, you have to, I think that's on, there we go, it's here, this page. So they can ask for side yard reductions, but not endless side yard reductions, because again, that would take it back to not this law, not this streamlining. And what else? I mean, a lot of the stuff we've asked for is in this in this. So I then looked at the commentary package, but, in other words, the letters written to the Planning Commission for tomorrow's hearing. So it's in it. If you go to the actual agenda, you can find this supplementary package. And a neighborhood council in West LA, I think it was the Westwood Neighborhood Council, objected to this as essentially going too far, giving too much power not secretly giving the power, but to staff, where nobody gets to review the work of a staff member, no elected official.
This is the 81 fact sheet or the CPC commission?
No, this is the CPC hearing tomorrow. If you ever look online at the hearing notices, there's column 1 would be the hearing notice, and column 2 online is the supplemental it's called supplemental documents. And it's letters, it's anything people write to the commission in advance. So one letter came from them. Another letter came from Abundant Housing, the organization, and indicating that they had actually had a lot of fruitful back and forth with the planning department. The planning department adopted many of their recommendations, but apparently not quite enough, because they don't like the paragraph about the trees. They want, they think a tree canopy is an important issue, but the ability for an affordable housing developer to provide units was more important than for it to provide trees.
Trees would rarely impede that.
I'm just sort of saying that wasn't their key thing. That was just one of their comments. In other words, they went the opposite direction, right? To the neighborhood council in West LA. They want this to allow more waivers, like 2 waivers instead of 1, and maybe 3 incentives instead of 2. Others, you can read the letter. I can't email the whole supplemental package because it's way too big. But in addition to that, there was a letter included from an individual who pointed out that he makes median income. So this is limited to projects that will serve 80% of median or lower, right? So median is around 67 to 72,000 right now, annual income, depending on the household size, could be higher. Anyway, he said he makes median income $70,000 a year, was what he said. And that the current going rents would be too expensive for someone at his wage to easily afford. So, so that he didn't want it limited to 80% of median. This is a change because the mayor's ED1 goes all the way to 120% of median. So for this, you don't get the streamlining unless you're 80% or lower. I think that's fair, personally. And I don't know what else to point out. So right there, eligibility is that paragraph, I think. Maybe not. Maybe not. Yeah. Just maybe not. Anyway.
So it's a resource, and this is likely, I asked Dana Sales, who we all know very well. I asked her at Design for Dignity last week in her panel discussion whether if she thought this was going to pass and which council members were going to object and why. She thought it was going to pass. She thought that the tweaks were good, but didn't roll it back. So she thinks it's going to pass really easily.
Well, it did roll it back, actually, and
not in like some awful.
Yeah. So and so the other thing that the abundant housing people complained about was that by limiting it to 5 units or more, right? So it's limited to projects that are 5 units or more. It eliminates RD2 zones unless there's more than one lot. I don't think that's exact. It is sort of accurate and sort of not accurate, because at least in Angeles Vista, most of the RD2 lots by right allow 4 units because of the larger sizes of the lots. And that's before you do the density bonuses for affordable housing. So clearly, affordable housing with whatever density bonus it's going to be allowed in the future or currently would then be able to do 5 units or more. So I don't know if an RD2 unit lot with, say, 6,000 square feet. I mean, I can't do the math on the top of my head, but I just don't know how many parcels throughout the city of LA are RD2 on small parcels. Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's sort of like, I think it's kind of a red herring complaint.
So I think the overarch, obviously, 100% affordable housing. They're trying to make it enticing for developers to do it by adding enough.
But what isn't it a 50 to 100% increase in the number of units?
There is. So went from, depending on what it was, it can go up to a 100% increase.
Right.
But for the most part, it's like an 88% increase.
Yeah, but I'm saying, so on a 6,000 square foot lot, and I don't think you will find RD2 on anything smaller than that, because there's other rules about the smallest size lot that can be an RD2, I think, is 6,000. If you then get your density bonus, you're going to have more than 5 units. 6,000 would be 3 units. But then you get your bonus, so you could have 5 or 6 units. So, and maybe an ADU, as long as the ADU is affordable. So I feel like the abundant housing is really pushing back to make this more strict, and then West LA is pushing back to make it less administrative, and to have notifications and not allow it to be totally. I personally am a little concerned that it can proceed with all of these clearances for CPIOs and specific plans, et cetera, also being deemed ministerial, i.e. secretly done by staff, especially since at this point in time, the staff for citywide for these posts, meaning CPIOs, specific plans, are the youngest of staff. They're not the senior staff. And maybe the least knowledgeable, not the most knowledgeable. Anyway.
Another thing I heard is, oftentimes we have so many incentive programs. You have QPSH and TOC and density bonus. And so what you can do now is that if there's an incentive in any one of those programs that you want to use as your incentive, you can pick from each program, which didn't exist before. You had to choose one or the other. You had to choose TOC. So if TOC offers an FAR incentive that you want to use that the density bonus doesn't get, you can choose that as one of your incentives. So you can pick, you can go shopping through the incentive programs, which,
well, that's kind of weird.
I actually think it's kind of good, because that means you don't have to say, well, if I do density bonus, I can get 33%. If I do TOC, I get 35%. Okay, I want the 35, but I can't do that. And sometimes there are quirks, like density bonus doesn't have any provision for FAR, and TOC does. So FAR will hamstring you in the density bonus, but it won't in TOC. So anyway,
I was going to say a TOC project would not be one of these anyway on this thing.
It wouldn't be a TOC project, but you can use the incentives that are in TOC.
But it's incentive singular. Remember, they're limiting the number as well.
Yeah, I think it's 4 or 5. Anyway, regardless, there's little quirks. Anyway, moving on to any questions, Donna, from the John and Laura show? And we're basically just having a discussion here.
Yeah. How you doing there, Donna? Are you following any of this?
We lost her.
I know
So
she's eating dinner.
We're speaking into the.
I am understanding every fourth a part of it,
Okay.
but
It's gonna
I
be
think-
it's gonna be great on YouTube.
well, the density part bothers me. I'm concerned about where it's gonna leave us. I heard a little bit I thought might be helpful. So,
Okay.
and I'm sad for the people who can't rent to own.
Right.
Nobody builds that.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So after so many years, it should be a chance.
Right. Well, here's another one John just posted, which is another
Mhm.
law, SB 4, also known as Yes in God's Backyard, or YIGB. So not NIMBY, not YIMBY, YIGB, Yes in God's Backyard. So, John, my understanding of this essentially allows religious organizations, but also nonprofit colleges, to build housing by right on land that they own, regardless of the zoning. Is that more or less?
Basically, yep.
So the question is, and I'm not opposed to this, but the question that we had been discussing in Los Angeles for years now, on and off, every time they tweak the South LA plan, what happened in South Los Angeles all the way back in 1987 is that when AB 283 required that zones be brought into essentially compliance with the land use element. So when you look at the land use maps and you see yellow or orange, light orange or dark orange or red, that's those different colors are the low, medium, and then high density, density land use components. And the zones have to be compatible with that. Excuse me. Throughout South LA for years before that, the zones were higher than the land use element. So what happened mostly in wide swaths south of the 10 freeway, so West Adams, Baldwin Hills, Leimert too, is that a lot of the zoning got reduced all the way to R1 or to R2, including the land that churches sat on. So then they invented this thing called, at the last minute, QR4, which made legal the churches themselves, because if there was an earthquake or a fire, they couldn't easily rebuild because they were out of compliance with the zone. So this was designed to bring them into compliance, in effect, bring them into compliance with the zoning, but that's all. And it does not allow them by right to build housing on those same QR4 lots. So this would change that.
This changes that. So if you imagine any of the churches on Adams that have parking, a lot of churches, there's one,
It's
holy
not so.
name.
Yeah,
Holy
it's not.
name.
Yeah, it's not those churches, because they're on land that allows housing development. Where it affects churches are the neighborhood churches that were built to serve a walking community in the R1 zones or R2 zones. So for example, better example would be the church in West Adams Heights, north side of the freeway, where Oxford and Hobart meet, the one with the leaning tower.
Mm.
That zone is R2. They own a very large parking lot. They would not have been able to build, I don't know that they have any plans, but they own a parking lot, very large, across the street, that now would be developable as multifamily housing. So the churches on Adams, lots of them already have housing behind the churches, actually. So because the zoning allowed it.
So I know I probably looked at 15 church sites for my work.
Oh yeah, recently.
A lot of them out in the suburbs. I think the suburbs are going to get especially
Pissed off.
pissed. I was trying to pick my word. I'm looking at one in Colton, for example, and it's 3 or 5 acres. It's huge, and it fits a lot of housing. So anyway, I think that's going to
Well-
affect outlying churches with tons of parking around them out in the suburbs.
Well, my question is, if you know the answer, I don't know the answer. If a church randomly owns some piece of land because somebody left them some land, in a will, and it's not adjacent to the church, it's not where they worship, is that still land they can develop under this?
I believe so. I'm not sure.
Just because they actually own it.
Yeah, I believe so.
Interesting. All right. And then on colleges, I think the zoning there is usually kind of public open space. So that normally also would not necessarily by right have allowed housing. So this changes that too.
So it just makes it easier, regardless of the zone. Like if Holy Name decided to tear down the school, which I don't think they will, but they could more easily develop housing there, even though the zone allows it. It's be a lot more by right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
anyway, so that's SB4.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's not so much aimed at churches already in commercial zones, because technically they could already develop housing there. Or a giant office building for that matter.
Okay, let me just find the agenda. Go back to the packet.
Oh.
Did you get that? 1287 is a big one that everyone's talking about.
Where it says how California lawmakers greenlit, I don't know if that does or doesn't have. That's an article about several things.
So let's go to that Holland and Knight thing that I sent you, Laura.
What Holland and Knight thing that you said? Okay, so sorry. I don't have a Holland and Knight thing because I missed it.
Everyone gets to see the text between
All
me.
right.
Oh boy, where is it?
No, just don't know.
There it is.
Missed it.
Oh,
Sorry.
Missed it.
Well,
Sorry.
it said, well, I just saw the name Holland and Knight. There you go.
So this is I'm going to post this. This is a great website for everyone to have access to. It's a law firm that specializes in housing legislation.
Right.
So I'm going to post this, but every year they put out a new one. They just changed the date here to whatever. So they have it's a synopsis of all the housing laws, and they break it down into the ones affecting streamlining, ones affecting CEQA, ones affecting density, and ADUs. So these are all the laws that are coming into effect in January of 2020. I think it's January in 2024 at some point. So everything about parking, they do this every year, and they're really, really handy because they're lawyerly, they're accurate, and they're well written. So we're going to talk.
I was going to say, I like the anti-displacement ones we're going to talk about that one, but I like that they have a series of anti-displacement.
So Laura, go to this website when you go down to the bottom.
Yeah, no, I know Holland and Knight
You
website.
can go back in time and go to all 19, 20, 2021.
Oh.
So it's
Wow.
really convenient. Yeah.
Okay, so I will put this into the packet tomorrow for anyone who might be watching this later.
We should be getting YouTube credit on this, and because if this doesn't go viral, what deserves to go viral?
How would it go viral?
Because it's so good.
Uh-huh.
Let me go to 1287, which was listed in our. Where is it?
Well, this is the one that bugs me.
Hold on. Streamlining, CEQA, density. Here it is. So anytime you see the ABs, they're a rider on the density bonus, which is. So a density bonus was enacted a million years ago, and every time they update it, they go AB 1287, 2345, AB, all of them all go back to the density bonus. They're updates to the density bonus, and that's what 1287 is.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
the thing that bothered me about this, if I'm interpreting it correctly, is the reliance instead of on the zone to do the calculation, the reliance on essentially the color on the map.
Yes. that's right.
So if low medium color on the map has multiple different potential RD, restricted density zones. And now I think what I'm reading is that now it doesn't matter what your zone is, whatever is the most generous possibility in low medium, meaning number of units per acre, would be the calculation. So it's either meaning that,
I think it is meaning that.
yeah, or it's targeting what's going on in the valley. And there's actually a case at the city on this. Ventura Boulevard obviously is some sort of commercial zone, the stretch of Ventura Boulevard, but the blocks behind Ventura Boulevard have residential zones, many of them even lower than the regular R1, so like a R1 agricultural kind of zone, because they were still standing farms, little tiny farms or whatever when the zoning happened. So but the color on the map is the red or pink.
That's correct.
Of commercial. So I think they're targeting situations like that because in the city of Los Angeles, any zone that's equal to or lower than is, quote, compatible with a higher land use element. Different, the color on the map. And when we did in 1987 through 89, when the city did AB 383, implemented that, brought all the zoning into compliance with the colors on the map, the goal was equal to or less than. So there's lots of spots throughout the city where the zones are less than the colors on the map. Not here in South LA. I mean, not in the South LA plan, not in the West Adams, Baldwin Hills, Leimert plan, because we have a way up, recently updated community plans. So if they are really just targeting the disconnect between colors on the map and the zones, I'm okay. But if they're basically saying City of LA gets to throw out all of its zoning and just look at the color on the map, that's very disheartening.
So that is about density.
I understand,
So
but it's disheartening.
a lot of affordable housing will have unlimited density and just have to comply with the incentives and rules. So I think this is going to be more of an issue for lower density non-LA places. But anyway.
No, it's going to be, I'm sorry, John, because
it'll be everyone.
When we look around UNNC, if you're looking at the 10 freeway and south, this is not going to have that much of an impact. If you look at the 10 freeway and north, we've got whole wide swaths of neighborhoods, like the one I live in, where we were down zoned to RD2. It's totally compatible with the low medium zone, but it's not RD 1.5. And it's not RD, the fake RD of RD 1.2 that doesn't really exist, but was a Q condition. So that's gone, and I think that's really gone, because I think that was a Q condition on an R3. But the point is, if you go to the trouble of if the city had gone to the trouble, and they did, of calculating units, blah, 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 and down zoning character neighborhoods, not to single family, but to RD2, and this just throws that away, it's a slap in the face to people of color who wanted it. I mean, do you know what I'm saying? And for all of our neighborhoods that are R1, it has no impact at all, clear. But it has a big impact throughout South LA, and in particular, the northern portions of UNNC and much of Nandesi, for example. So I don't know. I don't have anything further to say, but it has a big impact.
So it does have some guardrails, though. It increases the density. It's incentivizing moderate income. It's incentivizing whether it works or not for sale. You get a bump if you do for sale. So it's starting to try to address, but doesn't address the condo laws that are so onerous. So it does try to not incentivize things in the right direction for more affordability, more rent, more for sale for moderate income. So I think it's trying to go in that direction, and it is increasing density, not increasing height. It doesn't say anything about height. It does say here that the number of waivers and incentives are limited to 4 or 5.
Right. Well, it's 2 paragraphs below that, maximum density.
Yes, this is the one. This is what
That
you're
is
talking about.
unclear, but it's still unclear because it's, what do they mean? Inconsistent, consistent. I mean, it's just unclear.
Yeah.
But how I read it in the legislation itself, this is an interpretive paragraph.
Yep.
How I read the legislation itself would be that it's thrown away the zoning.
How does it increase affordability though, you guys?
No, it just increases units.
That's all.
But to
So
get
what is
that,
the
Oh,
affordability?
no, Donna, I'm sorry. The problem is some people would argue it would increase affordability because there are density bonuses associated, density bonus projects associated with affordability. There's also density bonus projects associated with access to transit, and they don't need to have affordable units. So the problem is I'm not, maybe John has read this more thoroughly than me. Is it only density bonuses that have affordability components? Or is it transit affordability, transit density bonus projects? If you know. I know, because you focus on affordable housing.
you get more if you're near transit, and basically all of LA we're either in the AB 2097 zone or we're in the VMT zone, and they basically do the same thing.
Right. But that was, Donna asked, how does this increase affordability? And I'm guessing it doesn't have to, if it's a transit project as opposed to an affordable project density bonus.
So they're trying to saying right here, a project that includes 59% moderate for sale units can achieve 100% bonus. So they're trying to up the ante of saying if you give more affordability, you get more stuff. So,
It doesn't look like that's what they're shooting for though.
Well, maybe it does. That's what I'm saying. It's not very clear. Because again, we're reading an interpretation. I read the legislation itself, and this may be more the intention. I mean, we need to do a little more. I just think it's going to have an impact. It will have an impact in our community in a way that the other one, the housing in God's backyard, will have less of an impact here.
So I think that the short, and what's the final one that you had, Laura? 1449?
CEQA exemptions. The final one is AB 1449, and it's an exemption. It's an exemption from review at all under CEQA for certain affordable housing projects. And so it has to be in a dense urban area. We check that box. Has to be 100% affordable. I mean, the unit count has to be 100% for households earning less than 80% of the area median. And they also have to abide by stricter labor standards. So the complaint that some people are making about that one is that these stricter labor standards takes away is an economic disincentive to the rest of the goal.
Yes, that's correct.
So
I think the short and long of it, because we don't need to have the John and Laura show, we could chat forever, is that there are laws coming down that will likely impact us, and it'll just add another layer to what we talk about here at planning and zoning.
Correct.
And some things will admittedly give us less say. The good developers will always be seeking us out. The opportunistic developers will be happy to not give us the time of day. So There's gonna be there's a lot more incentive for density, but they're also trying to put some guardrails around it. So if you're giving more affordability, you can't just build skyscrapers and make the quality of life for tenants or the neighbors around it awful. So I think they're trying to incentivize more housing, more affordability, more more affordability without making our cities and buildings and life within the buildings.
Right. So now I'm gonna give the counter, you
Yeah.
know, this is just like that panel discussion,
Yeah,
John.
sure.
So, well, no, the problem is, I think other stated goals, and the city's got stated goals, that every community plan area, every neighborhood in Los Angeles should do their fair share, right? On the construction of new housing. So the cities talk, whether they're gonna walk the walk, I don't know, but the talk, they're talking the talk, is to stop focusing on this area, this community, and start putting housing in the higher opportunity communities, right? And they're getting such pushback. I mean, they're trying to put in like RD2 or even just plain old R2 on the blocks adjacent to their commercial corridors. I remind you that in our area, they put manufacturing zones in the blocks adjacent to, I mean, you know, on the commercial corridors adjacent to our residential. And the reason we have so much low median zoning in so many swaths of South LA and West Adams, Baldwin Hills, Leimert is because it was the only zone that could be applied back in the 80s once the city had to comply with AB 283 because they had made the Black neighborhoods R4 and had lost many of the single family homes, and they couldn't do the math when you had character neighborhoods that also had giant apartment buildings. So they downzone, but not all the way to R1. And more recently are trying to, you know, put on the overlays and do all these things to stabilize or keep stable these neighborhoods. And now that the city had wanted to move the housing to elsewhere. With this law in particular, 1287, but a lot of the state laws, it's going to end up putting all of the housing back here because the land is cheaper and because we have now these RD zones that are being in effect targeted. And West LA doesn't have very many RD zones. The Valley does not have very many RD zones. And it's, you know, it's just more of the same.
Yeah.
In that, you know, we've been fighting this fight for 40, 50 years here. Well, me for 40, but people for 50 years. And since, you know, the mid 70s to try and retain and get back the stability in the neighborhoods of South LA and Southwest LA. So I'm troubled by this because these state laws do not give a big city like LA the choice to pursue equity in how they do their zoning.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
so I guess that's the bottom line, the equity in zoning.
Yeah, I agree. The wealthy neighborhoods will fight and do whatever. And
Right.
I looked at there's a new specific plan that runs along Pico in Westwood. I'm sorry, West LA. You know, near West Side Pavilion. And boy, you know, they're close to transit on Pico corridor.
Specific plan. You mean the CPIO?
It's not a CPIO, I forget what it's called, but it has basically said 2 stories and 3 stories along Pico, reinstates the enhances the transitional zones. So they already got their way on Pico because they're very wealthy, and Pico's been now rezoned
Well,
a specific plan to not have the capacity that our boulevards had because apparently their boulevard is more twee than ours. Really bothersome. I'll find this.
Please do, because actually Washington and Jefferson are also supposed to be 2 and 3 stories, but it seemingly doesn't matter.
But it's what this is. They have specific numbers in there of
Yeah.
feet, how many, and so it's really, it's objective.
Right. Well, that'd be good to know. So you're talking about in Rancho Park, that
Rancho
area.
Park, yep.
Yeah. They're
So
not
they
that
made the law to preserve inequity.
I don't know how they got it passed, but that's what I see on that specific plan. It's like, God, how did they get this retrograde, um,
Mhm.
uh, specific plan and done? I think it just went into effect last year. Couldn't believe it.
Well, I'm very interested in that because that's the same neighborhood that is fighting tooth and nail not to have increases in zoning on, like, yeah, the streets that run parallel to Westwood Boulevard and Overland. So these are two north-south streets, and what the planning department is trying to do, and I find it a little objectionable, but be that as it may, Glendon and Midvale, which are the streets just east and west of Westwood, the properties that back up to Westwood, they're trying to increase the zoning and calling that a buffer. And right now they're R1 zoned. And of course, if you live on the west side of Midvale or the east side of Glendon, you would say that's not a buffer. You're putting multifamily across the street from me.
Yep.
Which is what they're saying.
So I just posted it it's called the Westwood Pico NOD, NOD, neighborhood oriented district.
Well,
If they did it, how come we can't do it?
Because we aren't wealthy lawyers. I'm sorry, did I say that?
well, because they hadn't invented it when they did our plans, and they're in the middle of doing the West LA, 3 or 4 West LA community plans.
Oh, wait a minute. This looks. Hold on.
Is it just proposed, or is it?
No, it's in force. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not it. Hold on.
Well, we'll find it. We'll get it. We don't have to have it tonight.
No, but the point is, if it happened, it can happen here. If it happened there, it can happen here.
Yeah, just like we got our Washington Boulevard specific plan, right? Joke. Anyway.
Well, if they did it once.
Or wait. Or just like they consider the Adams Boulevard scenic highway something real. I mean, it's really in the transportation element, but so far planning department saying, well, it's not really that real. And they're not considering it when it comes to cases. So, all right. Well,
all we need to do is to get one good reporter to write a nice story in the Times.
They won't, because they're
actually exposing what they're doing. So,
yeah, not holding breath. Okay.
Why can't I find that? Anyway, I'll find it.
You'll find it.
I just read it. It just went into effect last year. I read it and I was just like, wow, look at this.
Yeah, that's good. Good to hear.
But do you think it's a specific plan or is it closer to a bid, if you know? We'll find out.
It's not a bid. It was more like a specific plan.
Wow. Because all I'm hearing out of that neck of the wood is complaining.
I know what I could find it. You go to, let's go to Zemus.
Right.
That block's like 11100 Pico, something like that. Look at that.
Well, they're pretty smart if they did it.
It's called the NMU. It is called the.
You gonna share this on the screen?
Sure. So it's basically in this area. So I just highlighted this.
POD.
I see a Exposition Corridor Neighborhood Plan. I think that might be it.
Oh. So it's a little further west. How far east does it go? This is at Sepulveda.
Let's see if we can find the map here. It's see a date on this, 2020. No, it's not. Hold on.
I see the map.
It's not it. Oh, this one. Nope.
That's old,
Yep.
1998.
Where is it? Why can't I find it? I know.
Well, you're a
we have
little,
we have,
maybe because you're a little farther west than you thought. Can
nope. We're looking at a project. I think it's this one right here.
Okay, so. the
Oh, how
question-
about this one? Exposition Corridor Transit Neighborhood Plan. That sounds right. Okay.
Well, it's a CPIO.
Is there any date on it? Nope, that's 2018. Anyway, it's in there. I just read it, and it's pretty.
And I'm sorry, I'm staring at the computer instead of the TV, but I can read it better.
Anyway, it'd be interesting to see what they got and how they got it.
Yeah.
What seemed to be acceptable to the planning department.
Well, and how is it going to be revised? Because again, right now is when they're doing the revisions of those community plans, so it might end up revised anyway.
Yeah. Okay. It's 8:20. That was our informational session for this evening.
Right.
I don't think we have any. Do we have anything else on the?
No, because I announced that hearing already. So, yes, if somebody's watching this on YouTube, look at our agenda, because if you're interested in going to the Planning Commission hearing tomorrow on Zoom, it's out in the valley, so you're probably not going to drive out to the valley in the rain, unless you're in the valley already. But this is when they're going to talk about the affordable housing streamlining ordinance. And John, I think we've already addressed, UNNC has already addressed the ED1, so it'd be similar. I think we can develop, without a vote tonight, but we can develop some sort of letter CIS that we can ask on December 7th, the board to vote yes on, without us doing anything here tonight, because it would be convert that letter to CIS.
Yep, I agree.
And that would depend partly on what happens tomorrow, meaning I with the exception of the language that I think needs to be technically tweaked as it references the South LA CPIO, I like where the ordinance is now, because it's much cleaner than what the emergency declaration is.
Yes.
And so unless it gets put back to being less protective of our community, I think we would support it. So I'm not logging in tomorrow. We have way too much to do. I'll follow up.
Okay, great.
Okay.
We'll keep everyone updated. Thank you, audience.
You're welcome.
Donna, Ms. Jones, all of you.
You're welcome.
All right.
He made us not shouting into the void. So
No problem. I
Okay.
enjoyed it. Thank you.
okay, good night,
Bye.
everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.